In the late 1980s, Padma Kuppa decided to tackle the reams of paperwork and red tape involved in obtaining a green card. It was her dream to return to the life she had enjoyed for 10 years in the United States, even though it meant leaving behind her parents and her brother in their India homeland. It was Padma's dual goal to attend graduate school and launch her professional career in engineering design in America. By 1991, she had achieved both goals and was well on her way to the independent lifestyle that she had envisioned. At the same time, Padma's parents were focused on finding a husband for their only daughter, a search they undertook in the Indian tradition of arranged marriages. Once again, Padma found herself enmeshed in a world of cultural extremes, searching for ways to find balance between her family's cultural heritage and her burgeoning American ideals. Remaining resolute about the American life that she envisioned for herself, Padma agreed to make a date with one of her parents' matchmaking choices, but only after they told her that this young Indian man, already living in America, knew how to cook.
I wanted equality in the household, and if a man doesn't cook and a woman has a professional degree, if a man is not willing to take on some shared responsibility, it becomes a burden. And it becomes unfair, and there's no equality in the marriage. And I wanted a marriage where my partner would share.
Okay, stop right there. Where did you learn that ideal?
Probably growing up here.
But it wasn't a role model, a mentor, women you saw, your mother, anybody?
My mother was a PhD and a professional. My father helped, but he was not equipped so much to help in the kitchen because he hadn't been raised that way. He tried, but a lot of, especially when we moved back to India, he fell right into those cultural stereotypes of the mother is the one who does all the cooking and cleaning. And I realized that was a strain on her. And so that was...
And she accepted it.
She accepted it.
Because it was back into the culture that she came from as well.
Right.
So you hear that this guy cooks, and your girlfriends are saying, at least look at him, right?
Right.
And so where do you meet?
We actually talked on the phone several times before we met, and then he flew out to Connecticut to visit his aunt, and I had actually some family connections with his aunt who had been here for a couple of decades by then. So we met at her house.
And where were you in grad school?
I was actually done with grad school. I had just started a job.
Where?
In New York,
okay.
At a university, at a nonprofit, running some of their IT systems and accounting systems and designing some of the future of how they would use their ID card on campus. And so...
So your doctorate or master's?
Master's.
In engineering or it's in design?
It's engineering design. So I went up to Connecticut to meet him and ended up really liking him. And then he came down to visit me in Long Island. And the rest was history. We maintained relationship via phone, met again to get engaged in July.
But how many times did you see him between April and July?
Only that 1 week that he was out in New York and Connecticut.
Did you have any hesitation at doing that?
To get engaged, no.
Because you could break it?
Yeah, well, I mean, that plus we had a lot of opportunity to talk.
Mm-hmm.
Because, and I think it stripped away all the, like, how do you look and all of that kind of thing that I already knew from meeting him that week that we spent together either in New York or in Connecticut. I knew that the chemistry was there. But did the philosophy and the approach to life, did that fit?
Were there any major hurdles?
A little bit, but not too many. We got married the following year in April, so almost a year after we met, we got married. A little bit over a year.
And what does he do?
He's also an engineer. Professionally, we speak the same language. Linguistically, also, we speak the language Telugu. We eat the same types of food because we come from the same
region area.
And area. The county, it's called the district in India. That his dad's hometown is from, Guntur, is the same as my dad's hometown. So the food and the habits and the expectations within our kula are the same.
What's the divorce rate like in India? Is it very high?
It was not before. It's not as high as the United States. But I think as women are more financially independent, they're not willing to take being subservient or being expected to do more. And I think that same progression that happened in the United States is happening in India.
But it also occurs to me that when you started to tick off all we like the same food, we have the same profession, we come from the same communities, we speak the same language. I mean, those are some of the things about an arranged marriage that are already in place that must make it easier. Compatible. Yes.
I always tell people, marriage is a risk. If you can reduce the risk by having some common ground,
right.
It makes it a lot easier.
Or does it make it boring?
Oh, no, because two people are never the same.
Okay.
And especially because you never grew up in the same context. When my kids were probably lower elementary, we were watching some PBS show and somebody referenced interracial marriage. And so they said, what is an interracial marriage? And I tried to explain. I said, person who's from one country, one culture marries. So they said, oh, so you and Nana are interracial marriage. Because I'm American and he's Indian, because he was born and raised there.
And he is not an American citizen?
He is. We got citizenship and did all of that.
So if I asked him the question I asked you, would he say I'm an American citizen, or would he say I'm Indian?
He would probably say I'm an American citizen, but I think that, one, he's not as talkative as I am. One of us has to be quieter. But I think also that question of India as a nation state affects me more than it affects a lot of people, because I wasn't able to come back to this country because I wasn't a U.S. citizen. I didn't have a legal visa status. For people who didn't have that battle when they were 15, I don't think it's as poignant a statement or as big of an issue as it is for me.
Right.
So we got married in 92.
Okay.
We had our daughter in 1995, our son in 1998.
So you get to work a few years?
Oh, yeah. I worked all through that.
Okay.
I had to get my green card, so it was part of the sponsorship process that I had to stay fully employed.
And then after the children are born, do you stay home, or do you work?
No. I worked, and when my son was born, my husband had the opportunity through his employment to move to Michigan. Because I was still working in New York, and he was actually, till my daughter was born, he was working in New Jersey, and we didn't actually live together until she was born. And so when she was born, he started working for a company in Long Island. Then our son was born in 98, but at that time, NAFTA happened, North American Free Trade Agreement. And so the manufacturing that was happening in Long Island of airbags and steering safety restraint systems moved to Mexico. And about 10 or 12 people were offered the opportunity to move to Michigan. And so we took it. We said, I can find a job. I can take the first few months off. My brother-in-law was getting married, so I actually took 3 months off and stayed with the children in India.
Wow.
My son had his naming ceremony, the equivalent of a baptism, in the same function hall that my brother-in-law got married, in the middle of that.
Did that feel good to you, to take your children home and start their cultural education there?
Yes, and because I realized that my angst about being Indian was so linked to this nation state, and I couldn't celebrate the culture as easily as somebody who had a positive feeling about India. I wanted to make sure not only that my children had a connection to the extended family in India and the grandparents, because I never grew up with a relationship with my grandparents beyond learning how to write in my native tongue and writing a letter to both my grandmothers every year or so. I wanted to make sure that my kids had lively, vibrant relationships with family in India, and also that they felt positive about their relationship to the country of India and the culture of India. And so we went back quite often. In fact, my career, both due to health reasons and because I wanted to provide my children that opportunity to stay in India, because it's different when you live there as opposed to when you go there for 2 weeks. So I wanted them to not feel like they were tourists, and so we went and stayed there as often as we could. Both my children, one summer, they spent without me in India.
How'd you manage that? Was it hard for you?
It was, but I think it was very good for them, and it was also very good for me, because we're not supposed to be attached. Remember, the fruits of our labor, we're not supposed to be...
Yeah, so they say.
Right.
Wait till they get married.